Hey team, Jordan here, and I'm here with videographer Kyle. Him and his partner Jake. Last year, they only made about $16,000 a year from last year. In January, they joined the WLMA. Their first 2 weeks, I believe it was about $14,000 in sales, like just from the script that they learned in the WLMA and everything as well. 6 months later, hit six figures, and then catching up to like about a month or month and a half after that, added another 30,000 of that. So about 7 months in, $130,000 in the WLMA. But super exciting, man. How's it going?
Dude, it is going extremely well, and I have you guys to thank for that. So
Awesome.
thank you so
Yeah,
much.
it's been a joy to see the journey, see the progress and everything. Excited for this interview so more students can even learn from it, find inspiration from it, and all that as
Absolutely,
well. But yeah, ready
absolutely.
to dive in?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's do it. So yeah, I guess Kyle, like looking back with you and Jake and everything, from where things were before joining the WLMA and how they are now, what do you feel are the biggest variables that have changed in the business?
Okay, so that's a great question. Before we joined the group, um, we spent a lot of time focusing on who we were as a brand and as a business. Um, we spent a lot of time focusing on like our technical or like our technique, and really making sure that we are capable of producing what would be considered like industry level content.
Hmm.
But we severely lacked in the area of like marketing and talking to our clients, engaging with our clients. So one of the big differences that we noticed immediately after joining the group is nurturing and talking with our clients.
Hmm.
Before joining the group, people would reach out to us, and we were severely lacking in the nurturing department. Someone would reach out and say, "Hey, love your work. Would be interested in possibly having you at our wedding. What are your prices?" And Jake and I had a very generic response that we kind of had pre-recorded that we would send, and it would mostly be, "Hey, thank you so much for reaching out. The average investment for wedding photography and or videography is this much, but we charge this much.
Yeah.
Let us know if that sounds good to you." And then we would just leave it at that. And what we found is we were getting ghosted left and right because we missed that key component of like showing the value of what we have to offer and really nurturing the client. So
Yeah.
um, fast forward joining the program, you have taught us the value of nurturing our clients and showing that we are kind of like the authority in our
Yeah.
field. And the consultations we have completely revamped to where we take every approach, every inquiry into a consultation so that we have an opportunity to, one, to meet, and two, just take the time to show what we have to offer before we even mention like our investment options. And in doing that, it's been really valuable because I think right now, realistically, our conversion rate is probably at like 96%, which is
That's
mind blowing. Yeah,
insane. That is freaking insane, man. And you know what's an interesting thing is like I noticed this too, like when I was experimenting like with all these strategies with weddings, it's like sometimes when you're at that lower price point, maybe if it's at like 1,000, 1,500, you can get away with like a message like that. And like you'll get those people who want that price point, they'll book you. When you get to that point where it's like when you're booking those higher packages, it's like if you give the price point away, you just won't hear from them. But the people who can actually afford it, it's like they want to be able to meet with you, be guided through this process, and kind of be led to see like, yes, this is now I see why it's different. Now I value you, kind of a thing. But
absolutely.
that's amazing. That's amazing. Getting a feel of this as well. So you found a lot of success through our sales strategies very quickly. What was it in the sales process that brought up your conversion so dramatically, and what is different from how you used to do sales and how you do it now and everything as well?
Well, I kind of touched on that with the first question. I think the biggest change has come from bringing all of our conversions offline meaning instead of just sending them like a generic like price list of what we have to offer, we invite them into a consultation. And there, the psychology that we implement has been phenomenal. Like we had no idea how important psychology plays.
Yeah.
And this, I mean, it's like a game essentially. Um, so really the biggest technique is one, we eliminate that feeling of a sale in the first place. You know, no one likes to be sold to. I do not like to be sold to.
Yes.
You know, we have people come to our house and they try and sell us stuff, and it's like, oh. So one, eliminating that feeling of like, okay, this is a sales call. We nip that in the very beginning. So we take a non-sales approach to invite them into a consultation, and we tell them beforehand that the consultation isn't to sell you anything. It's simply just to diagnose what your needs are, where you're at, and to see if we would be a good fit to work with you. So I think changing that I don't know, that approach from,
Yeah.
hey, yes, we would absolutely love to shoot your wedding and please hire us, to, well, you know, we'll pencil you in. We have this day available. And then when they come into the consultation, really getting them to kind of like tell us what their needs are, and essentially sell to us versus the other way around has been phenomenal. It's
Is
been
that
phenomenal.
that's an interesting thing as well. It's like when you actually find out like what sales actually works, it's not even like sales. It's not even like in persuading them. You're asking all these questions, and it's almost like building clarity in their mind, building clarity in your mind, where you can connect it in the end and all
Right.
of that as well.
Right.
And almost like that mindset, I guess, like what you're saying. It's like, you know, you don't have to work with us, but here's a meeting where you can kind of decide if it is a good fit and everything as well.
Yep. Yep. And people love that. People, you know, like immediately when they start feeling like they're sold to you, you tend to like lose them even at the
Yeah.
beginning, you know, because they're like, oh gosh, you know, like they're gonna talk, you know, this entire time just to hit us with something that we're not even sure if we're really interested in, you know. So yeah, changing that approach to, you know, we don't outright say this, but you know, why should we work with you type of approach. Give
100%.
us, you know, like tell us a little bit about yourself, and you know, like what do you find so interesting about our work to, you know, to, yeah, that's kind of how we approach it. And you know, then it kind of flips a script in their mind, like, oh man, like these
The
guys are
authority.
busy. Yeah, these guys, yeah, exactly, that sense of authority. And then they just kind of change up, like, man, like I really hope that they decide to work with us, you know, like
Love that.
how can we impress them, you know. And that takes a lot of pressure off of us, because it doesn't feel like a sales call. And so we when we approach it that way, you know, they begin selling to us, and then we just kind of, you know, just be our authentic selves. And by the end of the consultation, they're like ready to give us a bunch of money.
Yeah, love that. Love that. I guess getting a feel of this, you know, for the people who maybe do have struggles, still having struggles with the sales strategies that we're using, maybe with the script, what is a piece of advice you'd have with the consultations that you could give them to get better at it?
Sure.
Maybe that's mindset, tonality, any of that type of thing.
Sure. I think mindset is really important. I think once you make that change, from I absolutely need to make this sale, to,
Hmm.
hey, you know, if they book with me, excellent. If not, that's fine, because, you know, like this market is so saturated with, you know, consumers that, you know, if this isn't the right client for you, you have the next one. So if you remove yourself from, I absolutely need to get this sale, and just focus on being genuine and
Hmm.
authentic, and just being a person, and just taking the moment to just get to know them as individuals. I do know that people tend to struggle, you know, especially like if you lean more towards like an introverted personality. It's kind of hard to talk to people, whereas
Yeah.
myself and Jake, we're very easygoing, easy to talk to. And the consultations, while it is business specific, and the end goal is to essentially close the sale,
Yeah.
um, really we just focus on getting to know the people, and focus on that versus, you know, like, let me show you why you should, you know, purchase our packages or go with us as your vendor. Just really focusing on, you know, genuine like relationships, I think is very important.
Yeah, I think that's definitely key as well. Kind of one thing, especially because I'm a little bit more introverted as well. We were talking about this earlier, and at first, you know, these consultations I do, I'd be incredibly nervous. Sometimes with that desperate mindset as well. Like I was like, I need to make this sale, and every single time I had that mindset where, oh, I need to make this sale, like and that vibe would come across. The sale would always never go my way.
Right.
There was a journey of like a lot of like sometimes just like meditation, kind of getting my mindset in a total place where even if I did need it at that time, the sale at that time, I would get my mindset where I didn't need it at all. Like I viewed myself as the authority. They were chasing me. And it
Right.
was that like switch
Hmm.
where conversions totally changed as far
Yeah,
as
it
that.
really is.
Yeah.
I think that's a great analogy. It really is like a switch. It's something that you physically have to rewire in your brain to, this isn't a sales call. This is just an opportunity to get to know your potential clients and give them an opportunity to see you. And that's where like we invite them to just really just put their mask down and just be genuine. And we take the same approach, you know, like it is a business call, you know, it's that consultation. So there is like some professional mannerisms that need to take place. But for the most part, we're just our true, authentic, silly self. So Jake and I, we're super silly and we are not afraid to let that show because that's what people are looking for. You know, people want to know that the person that they're hiring, one, they love their job, and two, they're just a blast to be around. And I think
Yeah.
that kind of speaks to our brand.
I love that. I love that. And that's a great thing that you said there as well. I remember one post we were talking about a long time ago about like joking in like sales. Doesn't work for every single prospect, but sometimes with the right one, like when it comes to making purchasing decisions, like for some reason, like people get in a buying mood when they're having fun.
Right.
And so sometimes when I'd be with the right personality, you know, and I felt like I could vibe with them, I could joke with them a little bit. Those are always the people who were making decisions
Yeah.
right there. How have you found that kind of like with you, with like joking around with like certain prospects and everything to the
Yeah,
buying
definitely,
process?
definitely the same. The people who tend to be more open and fun, I think that they're kind of like setting the tone. We typically let the client set the tone, and
Yes.
if we're not vibing very well with like, I had a consultation the other day, and they entered the consultation and they were very like, hey. I straight up asked them, I was like, did I catch you on a bad day? Did your dog die today? And they were like, what? And I was like, you just seem very bummed out. Like, you know, this is an exciting time you're planning. And that pepped them up immediately. And
Love that.
thankfully, their dog didn't just die.
Yeah,
But
I was
yeah,
just thinking that.
you definitely have to know your client base. Luckily, this was a client that, you know, I've
Yeah,
had personal history with, so I knew that it was kind of appropriate. But definitely know your
exactly.
clientele. You know, it's almost like fishing. You throw a line out there, and if they nibble on that personality and that tone that you're throwing out there, continue to dial that in. Whereas, you know, if you throw your personality out there and you're hitting a brick wall, maybe that tells you that you need to dial it back just a little bit.
100%.
And yeah, so just knowing your clientele and just knowing how to read people, I think, is very important.
Yeah, I think that's really great advice. It's kind of like if they're not biting on the personality, it's like kind of mirror what their personality is at
Yeah,
that point.
yeah,
If you feel like things are vibing, things are building kind of with that, kind of go with the flow. Perfect
yeah,
advice. Perfect advice.
yeah.
So getting to this like even before the consultation and everything, what are some ways you build trust or come across as the market authority when you meet with many couples, or even especially before you meet with couples in that nurturing process?
Sure. So I think one of the biggest things, I think there's a psychology to it. I haven't really dove deep into the psychology of this, but this is actually a technique that we learned from the course, and just creating that sense of prestige and
Mm,
the fact that, you know, like we're busy and we're constantly working, so either we can work with you or not, it's fine. So when people reach out to us, we're not immediately like, yes, we have an inquiry, and then jump into the email and say, hey, let's meet right now. You know, we typically like to give it a day or two
yeah.
to mull over. We reach out to them, you know, thank them for their inquiry, and then get to know a little bit about them to see immediately, like it's almost like a vetting process.
Yeah.
And you know, first of all, see if we're even available. But once we find out that they're willing to jump into a consultation, we push it out a day or two.
Yeah.
And I think the psychology to that is, you know, these guys are extremely busy. So if I want to meet with them, like I have to make my schedule kind of work. So we'll give them a couple options. And so what we typically say is, you know, we'd love to meet with you in a consultation. But the majority of our time this week is already reserved, but we can do this day or this day at this time or this time.
Yeah.
Which one of those works best for you? And I think in turn, they're like, okay, so these guys are obviously very busy. We already have seen their work and we love their work. So what can we do on our end to make this possible to move forward?
Mm.
And that begins immediately. The roles kind of reverse. Now they're kind of chasing after us, and that kind of
Yeah.
starts that process. So I think that's a great start to begin that process, and then just kind of making ourselves available even before the consultation. If there's anything you need before then, feel free to reach out, and any basic questions that you have, feel free to let us know. But just know that the majority of your questions will be answered during our consultation.
Love that. So a lot of it is at that framing,
Yeah,
especially with that as well. Good, good.
yeah.
So, Kyle, so being a videographer can be tough sometimes because it's often seen, as an afterthought for a lot of couples. What is some advice you have for wedding videographers in the WLMA to get more bookings as well?
Yeah, that's a tricky question, because and it's unfortunate that a lot of people do consider videography as an afterthought. And I've thought about this before, and I think really what it boils down to is that we tend to be a product of our environment. And when I think of wedding videography, I think of like what my parents had, back in, I don't know, like early 90s, and they just had some old guy in the back with a tripod. But things have really changed, like it's been 30 years, and now at least what a lot of the cinematographers are doing during weddings is it's little productions. I mean, it's essentially like a cinematic production of your day. So it's completely different than just kind
Yeah,
of being present and documenting the day versus taking a hand in the production and say, hey, like let's move from here to here because this is going to be more aesthetically pleasing.
yeah,
I think a lot of it is just going to come with time when people start to see this. Like, it seems, I mean, videography has been around for a long time, but it still seems so new,
yeah,
especially with all the changes that are taking place in the industry. To your question, I think that that's one of the important reasons why we have a consultation. Is sometimes clients just don't know if
mm,
they don't know. And if you take that opportunity in the consultation to say, for instance, if someone reaches out about photography, we typically ask them about cinematography as well, because they may not have considered it. And we've actually had a lot of clients who reached out for photography only.
yeah,
And then after discussing the prospect of cinematography and we showed them some of our films, they're like, I didn't even know that was possible on wedding day.
mm,
And it definitely is. And I think, like I said, what it boils down to is people just aren't aware of like
yeah,
what we are capable to do in such a short amount of time, that it is kind of like an afterthought. And a lot of times, what you're seeing out on the market is people just kind of getting their feet wet. And that tends to be like the tone that is being thrown out into the public when it comes to wedding videography. So people just aren't aware. So you make them aware. You show them what you have to offer. Also maintaining that mindset of like, I'm not here to sell this to you, but this is an option.
yeah.
Um, so I don't know if that answers your
No,
question.
absolutely. And it sounds like education and awareness is a big part of it. It's
Yeah,
whether that's in the consultation, whether if that's in maybe your VIP broader group or other platforms, so they can really see on what they're missing out on, because it can often be like a big regret when they realize what they could have got like after their wedding and
yeah,
everything like that.
yeah.
Awesome, awesome. Have
I
you
see a lot
found?
of I see a
Yeah,
lot of clients, even if they're not clients of mine, in wedding forums that are local to my area. A lot of people go to these forums and they express their regret for not having a
mm,
videographer for the wedding. And I think a lot of it is just they just weren't aware that it was possible, and like that they could have what we have to offer. Because let's face it, the market is very saturated with photographers, but there's
yeah.
not a ton of cinematographers out there or videographers. um, and so I think you hit the nail on the head. Education and awareness, I think, is
Yeah.
very important.
Yeah. So for the videographers watching this and everything right now, I think these could be some really great ideas when it comes to that nurturing funnel. Think about like that. I think that's even a great topic right there. Top regrets, past brides have had, adding wedding videography in there and showing a lot of content that can educate them, awareness, just show them how great your work is and is in general. Have you
Right.
found that partnering with a photographer can be a great way to shorten that gap that they're usually.
Absolutely.
Mm,
Absolutely. And that was actually a suggestion that I was going to mention.
yeah,
We have the luxury of not being like just a one trick pony.
yeah,
So if you align yourself with another vendor who is, capable of kind of like merging the two together, that's really great because when, like I said, people who approach us for photography because they see, just the photography side, then they kind of like have a foot in the door for, oh, also, we offer wedding videography as well, and this is what
yeah.
that looks like. And then they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know. And the best part is, you show these clients who weren't even considering videography, you show them a wedding film, and it resonates with them on an emotional level. Like, I love it when I show a wedding film to a client and they cry and they're like, I don't even know these people, and this is just so
Yeah.
beautiful. And it's like, well, that could be you on your wedding day. And then they
See
clicks
it
and
in
they're
a
like,
whole
we
different
have,
light.
we have to have it. We have to
Yeah,
have it. And I think it's just, they came into the consultation that wasn't even on their radar.
yeah.
And there it is. But yeah, having Jake, my business partner, as a photographer, I think that is a great opportunity to kind of segue into that. So for the videographers who maybe aren't partnered with a photographer, I would recommend finding a photographer in your area that you vibe well with, that like, and you love their work. I wouldn't recommend getting with a photographer who's kind of just starting out and working on the
Yeah.
brand, but someone who's established, and you guys kind of come together, and it's like you'll be amazed at how, I don't know, like how easily it is for you to grow when you have vice versa. And on the other hand, if someone approaches you for wedding videography, it's like, well, have you considered photography? Well, no. Well, let me show you what my partner does. And then you
Mm.
come in there, and then add all the other elements into the consultation, and then before you know it.
Yeah. And it really seems like as soon as they connect, it's like with that moment you talked about when they're crying, as soon as they connect and like they cry and they connect emotionally, they're invested emotionally, they have to have it.
Right.
And so it's, you
Right.
got to hit them in that emotional level as far. That's the great thing. Like,
Yeah.
with the album viewing, it's like I kind of have to, what helps get that is I use a lot of stories that help them get in the scenes. Great thing about film, it's so cinematic, and you show them these films and it already like does that work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You literally just sit
Awesome.
back and let it do all the work for you.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So yeah, what's next for you and Jake as well?
Man, I don't even know, because I mean, I didn't think that we were going to be here where we're at currently. Like you mentioned, last year our annual income was like 16,000,
Yeah.
and like we had a conversation about like what's our end goal. Speaking to like specific like monetary amount, like what would you be comfortable with? And I'm coming from a 9 to 5 job working EMS. He was coming from a 9 to 5 job. I think working EMS, I was making like $30,000 a year. So I was like,
Yeah.
listen, if I could at least make 30 grand doing what I love, I would be okay. And he said, dude, I'm trying to gun for 100K. And I remember thinking like, all right. I mean, like, we're not superstars or anything like that. And then after implementing these techniques, I mean, we just exploded, and I still can't believe it. Like, I ask my wife all the time, like, is this real? Because it doesn't feel real. It really doesn't. And me and Jake were just beside ourselves. So honestly, like, we haven't even thought of what the next part of this chapter is, because I mean, we essentially just skipped 20 chapters, and now we're like,
Yeah.
what the heck? Like, I have no idea. So I mean, I guess obviously continue to grow, continue to work on our brand. I would love to eventually bring on other like employees to help with our wedding days. So we don't, it's not as stressful with us. And
Yeah.
then maybe getting to the point where we have someone working for us specifically for like CRM,
Hmm.
stuff like that, so that we can focus more on what we love to do, and then like let other people kind of handle like the other aspects of the business. Um, so yeah, I think that's a step in the right direction, but I'm just
Awesome.
ecstatic to be where we are now, because I never thought it would be
I'm excited
possible.
as well. Proud of you guys.
Yeah, man.
And what is one piece of advice that you have for students in the program as well?
So the best piece of advice that I could give is, I've heard you mention this hundreds of times, but there's no such thing as a magic pill. There's no such thing as a button that you can hit. You only get back from this program what you are willing to put in.
Hmm.
You have showed us um, techniques and you've given us tools, but it's up to us to wield those tools and put them to work for us. If you're not willing to work for it, then like you can't expect much in return. But if you put in the work and if you implement these techniques and these tools that you show us, then you'll be amazed. I mean, I am like, I mean, we're not. I mean that's true, man. It's like, okay, like when we approach this group, and we've talked about this before, it's very hesitant because it's like, I mean, this guy says that he can help us scale our business, and I'm looking at all these other videographers, and I'm not gonna lie, at first I was like, paid actors, he paid that guy to say that, he paid that, and then I met Christora, who is low, and I was like, I know Christora, I know, and that's when I knew. I was like, okay. So we essentially just kind of like put a lot of trust in you and the group and said, all right, listen, we're just going to do what Jordan says, and we're not going to waver from that. And when we were talking to, oh, what was his name? The guy that who we spoke to originally before,
Hunter.
Hunter, yes. He told us the same thing. He's like, look, it's not easy, but I promise you, if you just stick to these principles, you guys will go far. And I said, all right, write it down. I said, because we're hungry. And if you're telling me that this stuff works, then we're going to do it. And if it's not working for us, we're going to do it even more. And it's actually been relatively easy. So people ask me a lot that, how is it owning your own business and working for yourself? Like, are you enjoying all the free time? And I'm like, I am busier now than I've ever been in my entire life. Like, I don't have a lot of free time, but I love every minute. Like, there's just something about, you know, hitting your own time ticket, like clocking your own ticket and working for yourself and just doing what you love. There's so much freedom in that.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's
it's
awesome.
just it's been amazing. So yeah, that would be my advice. Put in the work. Don't expect it to happen overnight, but and don't get discouraged because like everyone's different. Everyone has their own they adopt their own technique with these practices. And if you at first don't succeed, continue and reach out, utilize the people in the group, because there's so many people here that are doing extremely well. I think even more so than the techniques that are implemented in this group, the thing that has helped us to be so successful is the community.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to reach out and ask for help, even if it's just someone in the group who's just as new as you are. I think having kind of looking to your left and right and seeing people who are just starting, I think that's good to have, because when they succeed, you're like, oh, and then it inspires you to continue to grow. So
Love that. And it's there's so much support and knowledge to utilize here in Ron. That's something that we found been such an awesome golden trifecta. It's not just about the strategies, not just about the coaching, but when you have a community that you can lean on, you're all kind of headed in that same direction, using the same kind of things as well. You can take things to whole new levels as far as
absolutely,
awesome.
just connecting with the other members in the group, man. Like I feel like I'm on a Skype call with someone from the group, like on a daily basis, just hearing from them and sharing wins, even sharing losses, because there's power in that as well. And just learning from each other, man. It's wild. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, you learn so much when it comes to, even with the best strategies, there's always going to be troubleshooting, problem solving, refining. And as
Yep.
long as you know that, things are always going to be getting better. You're going to be continually sharpening those tools, finding new problems that are bigger problems that are going to take you to even new levels when you conquer those as
Yeah.
well. That
Yeah.
awesome. And where can we find you and Jake as well?
So we're on basically every social media platform. We have a Facebook page, we have Instagram, our web page, zcprod.com. And then I think we're actually getting ready to roll out on the Vimeo platform for like our video side. But yeah, all forms of social media, you can find us there, or you can come
Excellent.
out to Louisville, Kentucky, and hang out with us.
Awesome. Awesome. Dude, this was amazing. Thank you so much for the knowledge, amazing progress that you and Jake have made as well.
Yeah, man. Thank you. You know, I say it, but I don't. I feel like sometimes it falls on deaf ears. You probably get this a lot, but there's no way that we could have done this without you. So thank you, and to Crystal and everybody in the group, man. Like we're so thankful and grateful, and I can't wait for you to hear from Jake and to see like kind of his side of things. I mean, it aligns very well with us, but he's on the same page, man. Like there's no way that we could have done this in a year without your help. So thank you.
Our joy to help. Absolutely.
Awesome.